War continues in Russia's Kursk Oblast, and the Kremlin is losing control even on the information front, says military expert Valerii Riabykh. Espreso reports. On the 22nd of May, Russian President Vladimir Putin publicly announced plans to create a sanitary zone in Sumy and Kharkiv oblasts to protect Kursk and Belgorod oblasts from Ukrainian attacks. However, analysts note that Russian forces are unlikely to achieve the seizure of major cities like Sumy in the near term. Fighting in the Kursk direction remains intense. Russian forces are pushing hard but have been unable to dislodge Ukrainian defenders. The expert continues. The Kremlin is trying to boost the morale of its population through propaganda, but it's not very effective, as some residents of Kursk Oblast have already fled, Riabykh notes. According to the official data from Ukraine's general staff, Russian troops have shifted from large-scale offensive operations to massive artillery and airstrikes in the past 24 hours alone. 17 airstrikes and around 200 artillery attacks were recorded, Euromaidan Press reports. Ukrainian forces have established a so-called sanitary zone extending 10 to 15 kilometers deep into Russian territory in Kursk Oblast. This prevents enemy threats in the Sumy direction and complicates their logistics operations. Riabykh also reports that Russian forces are amassing forces for potential active operations in Sumy and Kharkiv oblasts, using Kursk as a staging area. However, for now, Ukraine's armed forces are successfully keeping the situation under control. Fighting in the Kursk direction remains among the fiercest, and the information front has become one of the most crucial battlegrounds for both sides in this war. Recall Vladimir Putin has visited Kursk for the first time since claiming to have completely retaken the Russian region from Ukrainian forces. Putin again refused to commit to a 30-day ceasefire proposed by Washington and Kiev during his call with Trump earlier this week. He said the Kremlin was ready to work with Ukraine on a possible ceasefire for a certain period of time, but neither Putin nor Trump discussed a time frame for a possible truce, said Kremlin presidential aide Yuri Ushakov. Following the call, the European Union announced new sanctions against nearly 200 vessels in Russia's so-called shadow fleet of tankers it says transport Russian oil for export to avoid Western sanctions.
The authorities of the occupying country, the Russian Federation, have given an urgent order to drive military equipment into the center of Moscow, while reinforced posts with equipment specially equipped with electronic warfare systems have been set up near the Kremlin. This happened after a massive attack by Ukrainian UAVs, the Moscow Times Telegram channel reports, citing Russian sources. It is reported that electronic warfare equipment has been deployed on the Bolshoi Kameny and Bolshoi Moskvoretsky bridges in the Russian capital. It is known that on May 21, after Russian dictator Putin's stubborn refusal to cease fire, the Ukrainian military resumed drone strikes on Moscow. As the capital's mayor Sobyanin reported, over the last 24 hours alone, more than 61 UAVs were allegedly shot down over the region, while over 300 were shot down over the territory of the Russian Federation as a whole. Russian air defense systems shot down 105 Ukrainian drones overnight on May 22, including 35 intercepted over Moscow Oblast, the Russian Defense Ministry has claimed. Due to the drone attack, all four Moscow airports, Sheremetyevo, Vnukovo, Domodedovo and Zhukovsky, as well as airports in Tambov and Vladimir, were temporarily closed. Ukraine regularly launches drone attacks against Russian military and industrial facilities in the rear to undermine Russia's ability to wage its all-out war. Moscow and surrounding regions have faced a growing number of Ukrainian drone incursions in recent weeks. While few drones appear to have reached the capital itself, their mere approach has already forced widespread disruption. Since the beginning of the year, Russian airports have been temporarily shut down at least 217 times due to drone threats. Recently, Ukrainian drones struck Russia's Bucha semiconductor plant in Oryol Oblast, which produces parts for Sukhoi warplanes and Iskander and Kinzhal missiles. The facility provides components to at least 19 Russian factories engaged in manufacturing Sukhoi fighter jets as well as Iskander and Kinzhal ballistic missiles. In April, President Volodymyr Zelensky announced that Ukraine is ramping up drone production to the maximum. Since the start of the full-scale invasion, Ukraine has been developing and deploying technological innovations and cutting-edge unmanned systems. Both Ukraine and Russia have increasingly relied on drone warfare, using aerial, naval, and ground-based drones for reconnaissance and combat missions. Russian President Vladimir Putin presented on Thursday the Order of St. Andrew the Apostle the First called to Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, Russia's highest award. The talent, knowledge, experience, and intelligence of Russia's chief diplomat Sergei Viktorovich Lavrov have earned him unconditional respect in our country and around the world, both among friends, as we sometimes say, and among so-called geopolitical opponents, Putin said. According to Associated Press, Putin also presented state awards to the editor-in-chief of Russian TV channel Russia Today Margarita Simonyan, cosmonaut Oleg Kononenko, and a nurse of a motorized rifle unit, Corporal Ludmila Balaleya, who covered a seriously wounded soldier from shrapnel on the Russian-Ukrainian conflict. Together with millions of the same workers, creators, and heroes, as united people, and as one team we will solve any problems, respond to any challenges. Putin added.
Награжден Лавров Сергей Викторович.
Талант, знания, опыт, интеллект главного дипломата России Сергея Викторовича Лаврова принесли ему безусловное уважение и в нашей стране, и во всем мире, как среди друзей, так, как у нас иногда говорят, и среди так называемых геополитических оппонентов. И в основе такого признания его преданность России, готовность в любой обстановке твердо отстаивать ее интересы.
Маргарита Симоновна, главный редактор телеканала Russia Today.